So, hello, Sonja.
But I'm happy to be here and to have this chat with you today. Thank you.
Yeah. So, is this an appropriate point then in a conversation to ask the question how it is done? You already started to allude to it and you gave some clues, but this mentally, process wise, how does it happen? Does a client arrive with a question in his mind? And what then? What happens after that?
Okay, so we get various clients. Some clients come because they're curious. And as we saw in another self, it is friends drag you to that, and then you get sort of pulled into that. So a lot of people are curious, but I believe all of us have an issue or another. So there is not a person on this world that doesn't have an issue. We all have something that we can, as I say, work with. So, and often a client comes and says, I have this issue, that issue, that issue. I don't know which one to work with. And simply by naming them, all of a sudden these issues have some commonality. And sometimes they sort of flow into another. Although we start with one issue, they sort of seem to flow into another. Sometimes we start with an issue and whatever we set up ends up in something completely different. So there is no set rule that we as facilitator can say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, this is the movement that's going to happen. Doesn't happen that way.
Mm. So we now at the stage where the client, you connect with the client at the beginning of the process. The client sits next to you, the facilitator, and you're asking what are the issues or the questions that you came to the constellation to work with. And then the client will start to speak, and through the conversation between you and the client, then will arrive a consensus approach how to then unpack that in terms of a three-dimensional spatial arrangement. Am I correct in, are you doing it that way as well?
Yes, and that initial chat is actually very important because sometimes a client is quite confused and they need something to actually bring it down to something that is workable. Sometimes, and it happens extremely little, where a client is not ready for a process. I have had that very on the odd occasion where a client has such a lot of emotion that the overwhelm is already too much to set up a constellation. And then it is best to just allow the overwhelm to come out and then set up a constellation a little bit later, or do something very, very small, a tiny movement, just to bring that overwhelm into something that is manageable for the client. But that I have very, very seldom.
Yeah. Are those situations all indicators that there could possibly some trauma in the system?
It could be that there's a lot of trauma, but every now and again, there's a client who has all the answers already ready. And all they want is the constellation to confirm their answers. And I'm quite wary when a client comes with all the answers already ready, because then I'm thinking, well, if you've got all the answers, why would you want to set up a constellation? Because the constellation may not give you the confirmation that you already have made up your mind to receive.
Anyway, if there's overwhelm, then the indication is there that it's time to slow down and to take small bites at this big monster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also to gauge where is the client emotionally. How much information is going to be too much? So often when a client speaks, because I sit next to the client, I'm also in the field already with the client. And then I can, because of the experiences that I've already picked up over the years, I can see this is going to be very difficult for the client. And then I make sure, are you really ready to see what may unfold? Because for me, if the client is already let's say a client came because a friend said, you'll get instant healing from this. And the client has an expectation to get that instant healing, but there is a lot of trauma. Then to unlock all that trauma in one Pandora's box is not a good idea. And then one has to gauge what is possible and what is not possible.
So we keep the well-being of the client throughout the process at the center of the radar all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
In summary then, for today, what would you say could be the valuable insights that could be helpful to coaches when they employ these skills and practice them in their relationship to their clients in the corporate environment?
First of all, because there is so much emphasis at the moment on mental wellness. Everybody's talking about mental wellness. And when is mental wellness complete? When the people feel complete, when there's wholeness. And each organization needs to come into alignment as well, because it's got people that have families at home, that have issues at home. Those people need to be accommodated. Their emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness needs to be acknowledged. And so that is a huge, huge, huge focus that every company has. And so as coaches, aren't we so well equipped when we bring this work into the workplace, into the corporates, and into our families? So